Today marks the 5-year anniversary of the tragic mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. On that day, which even though it's been 5 years, I still remember when we saw the breaking news and when we did that show. I can't believe that 5 years have gone by. But on that day, 20 children and 6 teachers were killed. Here are their pictures. Those children are incredibly young, so young.
The thing that got to me, John, is that they would have been 6th graders today.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, they'd be developing personalities and interests, having ideas about what they would want to go on to do in their careers maybe. And unfortunately not, their lives were taken thanks to a monster. Here are their names. We hopefully will not forget them. It's one of the reasons on days like this we like to look back and recognize those who were unfortunately taken from us. You see there are the children's names and then at the end the names of the teachers. And thankfully, because it's an anniversary, there's a lot of conversation on social media, profiles of the children and the teachers, some details about their lives. I saw Jake Tapper was tweeting out individual facts about each one of them. And so it's important that we do remember the victims. But we do have to recognize at the same time that while a certain group of people will look back and think about this, many won't, and many more won't act. And so it's not really a surprise that in the 5 years since that, there have been at least 1,576 other mass shootings with at least 1,788 people killed and over 6,000 wounded as well. And in these mass shootings, those woundings in some ways can be almost as terrible as deaths. We're talking about, in many cases, wounds by assault rifles, dreadful life-changing wounds. Now that's generally, but even if we're gonna go back to something like Sandy Hook, nearly 1,000 children under the age of 12 have died from guns in the US in just the last 5 years. 1,000 kids under the age of 12. That's one fatally shot every 44 hours, the equivalent of every other day. And this has been allowed to happen because too many people, especially people in power in this country, do not look back on Sandy Hook and remember what a tragedy it was and dream of never having something like that happen again. Very often, they're thinking about their donors, whether from the NRA or from conservative organizations that don't want to see any sort of gun control that could stop that sort of act. If we could bring this up, Harper's put out a tweet today talking about the consequences, summarizing the number of bills that have strengthened gun control since Sandy Hook at 14 and the number weakening it at 37. So those are our priorities, at least on a state level as a country. And that's not to say that we haven't achieved anything. There have been positive moves in terms of legislation in some states, typically the states that were already doing better when it comes to gun control.
We should start calling this by its proper names. It was the Sandy Hook massacre, and we are allowing massacre after massacre after massacre, and we are allowing these folks to terrorize us. And I don't just mean the shooters; I mean the lobbyists and the politicians that enable the shooters, that basically put those weapons in their hands and say, "Have at it, Hoss." I mean, you think in this country, there's not a certain percentage of the country that has significant mental issues, that is in other ways crazed, violent. Some obviously have nothing to do with violence. Some small percentage of people who have mental issues are violent, but it doesn't have to be a very big number. It doesn't have to be a very big number at all to produce 1,700 mass shootings since Sandy Hook in the last 5 years. How many massacres are we going to allow before we do something? And the answer is
thousands.
Yes, and it's only gotten worse. Orlando was a bigger number, and then Vegas was an even bigger number.
Yeah.
And our politicians that are supposed to represent us, instead of course represent their donors, and they collectively are saying, we don't care. We don't care that those kids died. We don't care that we have nonstop massacres, almost one a day in this country. And we're never going to protect the citizens because we get paid by the NRA.
Now, we do want to at least talk about there were attempts over the past few years to do something to try to address some of the specific, the most egregious mass shootings. Joe Manchin, along with one other senator in the wake of Sandy Hook, put forward a bill that would have required background checks for all private gun transfers rather than simply through the federal systems. And unfortunately, thanks to an incredibly deceptive smear campaign by the NRA, that did not pass. At the time, Barack Obama said this: the gun lobby and its allies willfully lied about the bill. They claimed that it would create some sort of big brother gun registry, even though the bill did the opposite. And in fact, the bill would have strengthened the illegal prohibitions against any sort of organized federal registry while allowing background checks for private gun transfers. So that died. In 2013, about 1 month after the Sandy Hook shooting, Senator Dianne Feinstein introduced a bill with 24 co-sponsors that would be a new version of the assault weapons ban of 1994, which expired a decade later. Now, in that case, Democrats and Republicans, thanks again in no small part to an organized lobbying campaign by the NRA and other pro-gun organizations, voted that down. And so no assault weapons ban, again, after Sandy Hook. And most recently, after the Vegas massacre that we talked about, in which, thanks in no small part to bump stocks, the ability to turn a semi-automatic weapon into functionally an automatic firearm. We had the Automatic Gunfire Prevention Act of 2017. That was after the shooting in October. Dianne Feinstein and Representative Carlos Curbelo introduced a bill to ban those bump stocks, the only purpose of which is to effectively break the law. That bill was stalled when the NRA voiced its opposition, and while we are being told that they are looking into the possibility of banning bump stocks, months are passing by, and now you can go and you can get one of these devices if you want, and you can replicate the Las Vegas massacre.
The federal background check law that John mentioned first had a 93% approval. If you can't pass something in a so-called democracy that has 93% approval, you might not be in a democracy.
Yeah.
You just watched the video by the Young Turks, home of the revolution. If you'd like to get a lot more than that, get the full show by becoming a member. TYTnetwork.com/join.